Heavy is the head that has to manage all of this.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel.
We're now incentivized to buy what we already buy.
Fumbling through college had me building.
I also got some done on the other side.
And that was right around, I would say, May, maybe, right before renewing the lease for this property.
Welcome to the channel, Martha.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh, I was going to say, I am getting up there in age, I'll tell you what.
Bills paid by other people, life was never this good. I had to step back, knowing that it's...
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we were just talking about rental prices and home prices with inflation, transportation costs going up, and everything around us going up. But how do you find affordable housing? How do you find affordable housing? Now, I am familiar with a few places in the world. Colombia, Dubai, New York, Ohio, Washington, D.C., Boston. And when visiting these places, when living in Oklahoma for some time, Texas for some time, I was able to see that there are pockets that are very underserved, where pricing of housing, pricing to rent, pricing to buy is very much cheaper than other parts of the neighborhood and area. And then another thing that I want to say, if you're actually in the market of buying a house, we're going to talk buying and renting, then you probably want a real estate agent which is familiar with the area, familiar with what is supposed to be happening in the area, if anything. Is there any development that is transpiring within the area, or is everything just, going haywire and going down the drain? It really just depends on what the city is actually doing to revitalize certain areas. Are you getting in before it gets too hot, or are you staying out because it's going cold as ice? So those are the things that you want to get ahead of and be aware of. Now, another thing that I would like to state is that you don't necessarily have to look at the worst neighborhoods, because, right, you didn't come here to hear, well, if you just move to the worst neighborhoods, it'll be cheaper. Of course it will. And that's not what we want. What we want is to find a deal, right? And depending on your living situations, it will be easy for you to find a deal. So we're going to start with the younger generation and move on up. So starting with the younger generation, you're in your 18 to your 30s. Maybe you're in school, maybe you're doing apprenticeship programs, maybe you're doing trades of some kind. These things will allow you to essentially have a roommate. So for example, in New York, upstate New Albany, where I went to school, you could room with college kids. You could room with kids freshly out of college, young professionals who were looking for work or starting work, and they still were used to that college life, and so they wanted roommates. You can room with freelancers. I knew a couple of photographers, people who shot music videos, because I also do music, and they, basically lived in like a party house, and were trying to just level up and do things to level up, and so they were trying everything within their power to get to a place or a space where they could eventually save enough money to then rent something themselves or even buy something themselves. Now, another thing to get into is cheaper housing. There are people, and I don't recommend you do this, but there are people who went to housing on Ohio State campuses. They don't go to school at Ohio State. I'm talking about young women that I know that are basically cheating the system and getting apartment style housing for very cheap. I mean, it was like $600, $800 a month, and then they were using like government stipends to make housing more affordable. So it's very unfortunate if you're in this situation. And hopefully you don't necessarily need these situations. I don't talk about this much because I don't necessarily do a lot of research on it. But what I will say is that the government does, or the city does, has certain services where you can get a stipend on your home, or what is it called? Housing affordability. I know in New York they do like a raffle and tickets so that once a place is available for you to move into, they will essentially pay a portion of that for you based on your income. So they might pay 25%, they might pay 50% of your entire rent every single month just for you to be able to rent. To me, that is very sad. It's very sad that it's gotten to a point where the city really needs to pay for New Yorkers to be able to live a regular life in an apartment where there's piss in the staircases, there's no security that will actually do their job, and there's really no support, no help. And these people can't get ahead because as soon as you start making more money, you just pay more in rent, right? So you'll never be able to pay the $4,000 a month in rent that is necessary. So you stay paying $2,500 a month and have the city pay the rest while you're just content with your job, because it's like, man, you'll never own a home, so what's the point, right? And that's kind of the mindset for some people. But there are government grants. There are things in place to where you can put $20,000, $30,000, even $50,000 down on a New York City home based on the grants that are available to you, whether you're a minority, whether you're not, or just a first-time home buyer in general. There are specific programs that will help you to afford a home in New York, as well as many other states. And so there are plenty of programs. I see programs every single day in the state that I live in now where they're offering $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000 for a first-time home buyer. And if you've owned a home in the past, but you haven't owned a home in the last 5 years, you're technically considered a first-time home buyer all over again. And I believe it's 3 years, but please go ahead and Google that and fact check me so that you can see. Matter of fact, we're about to do that right now, so I can give you the spill while you guys are looking at me. How long does it take to become a first-time home buyer? Takes 3 years, people, 3 good years. So I was correct. It's 3 years. I said 5 at first, but then I corrected it to 3. Now I just wanted to make sure that I was safe. That's why I said 5. But I wanted to give you the real details. So yes, it's 3 years, and then you're good to go from there. So with that being said, even if you owned a home in the past in a different state, and you're like, man, it's been 4 years. I'm trying to own a home. I just moved to Wisconsin. Let me go ahead and apply. You're a first-time home buyer again. And therefore, you're entitled to the benefits of what a first-time home buyer would be entitled to. Because, you know, the bank loves new money, and the city, as well as the state, loves property taxes. And so they're absolutely willing to grant you a couple of $1,000s here so that you can pay it all back in property taxes later down the line. Now, we've talked about what the government is willing to do for you in terms of grants, stipends, all these other things. But we didn't talk about essentially finding the diamonds in the rough. We talked about neighborhoods getting revitalized. We talked about what may be going on in the community and being in touch with the community. But there are always little deals that can be found. So for example, in my neighborhood, this home wasn't the most expensive home. It wasn't the cheapest home. It was not in the middle. I would say it was below middle. So at the time, a house might go for $195,000 to $250,000 in the neighborhood. I ended up buying this house for $215,000, right? So the average house would probably sell for around $220,000 to $225,000 at the time. And so over time, obviously the price of this home continued to rise along with the others. but by no means was it at the top tier, and it wasn't at the bottom tier either, but it was below average, right? It had and then here's the most important thing. There was no big major repairs needed, and there was a lot of space, and it also had a den area, which I'm now using now for my YouTube setup. So for me, that was a no-brainer. Sometimes you'll find places that are very cheap in good areas, but there's no space, there's no square footage, there's nothing for you to actually sink your teeth into. But here, I was able to get a full home and a den area and a basement and an attached garage. And so I was happy with that. And all for less than what the market dictates for this area. So I was absolutely happy with the results. And you know, sorry, I'm biting my teeth. I got braces in right now, so it's really affecting me, guys. But I was really happy with the results. So find the diamond in the rough is basically what I'm getting at. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. But before I go, I do want you to know how to find the diamond in the rough, because I would be remiss if I didn't talk about that. If you do have time, one thing that I like to use is niche.com. It really gives you a rating of the area in which you're looking at. So for example, if you are in 11206, that's a New York zip code, you can then look at the rating of 11206 on niche.com. If it's a C, B, D, A, then you can say, okay, let me go on Zillow, let me go on Redfin, and let me see what the rental prices are, or the sale price is if you want to buy. It'll then list everything in that local area and what is on sale. There are going to be some things that are on Zillow that's not on Redfin. That's why I encourage you to do both. That way you might actually find something even cheaper, because they're not listed on every site. They're not getting as much traffic. They're probably on the market a little bit longer. You may even be able to negotiate with them a little bit. I don't necessarily negotiate when renting, but I definitely do with housing purchases. And so you can definitely negotiate on that. Once you found the diamond in the rough, it has the square footage you want. It has the price that you want. It's in the location that you want. You then go ahead and make an offer. At this point, that's when your credit comes into play. That's when the cash that you have on hand comes into play. And that's when your financial maturity is examined, right? They want to know, are you a qualified buyer or not? And so with that being said, I hope you like this video and subscribe to the channel. You know I post every single day at 8 a.m. daily on YouTube and on Rumble. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Peace.